Hello everyone, thank you for watching this video. And so far, we have been talking about many things about Azure AD. Initially, we started discussing about the role clarity, and we spoke about Azure AD operations, where we discussed more about Azure AD capabilities and on-premises AD capabilities. If you are a system administrator, what you generally do on on-premises AD, like creating users, groups, providing access to applications, and server infrastructure, right? So these kind of things we discussed and with respect to on-premises AD. Then later we discussed about started talking about Azure Active Directory and what are the different operations we perform if you are a Azure admin and responsible for managing the Active Directory, right? So we create users, we create groups. You learn how to create users and groups, how to add the users to the groups, and how to provide them access to the applications, how to provide access to the or how do you assign roles to the users or groups on Azure Active Directory, like a global administrator role, application administrator role, user administrator roles. So to manage the Azure Active Directory, we also talked about privileged entity management. What is the importance of privileged entity management? And what are the prerequisites to enable the this privileged entity management role? What is the direct assignment and what is the eligible assignment in the assigned role category? And also we discussed about how you can set up the on-premises Active Directory. We created a server and we went through server manager and enabled the Active Directory domain services. We created a couple of users and couple of groups for the cloud synchronization, and we download the AAD Connect and install the AAD Connect, configured it, and we were ensure that the synchronization was successful. And while configuring the AAD Connect, we discussed many options, many options with the best practices, right? So this is what we have discussed so far, and we were able to provide access to on-premises AD users, and we were able to provide access to the users who got created in the cloud as well. So in this session, we are going to talk a little bit more about the Azure subscriptions and how you can provide access to the users on Azure subscription. So far, we given access only to the Azure AD applications, groups, and assigned the rules. And we reviewed the users in the Office 365, and I've shown you how you can assign the licenses to them as well. But today we will talk about how you can give access to the users on the Azure subscription, and what are the different permission types we have and how we provide access. All right, so let's get started. So you might have already seen in my previous videos, we also discussed about the Azure subscription and resource groups and resources, how you can provide access. So we'll be talking the same concept today with a little bit additional information. Right, so let us start talking about the requirement here. So the requirement here is like, I have Azure Active Directory already set up, and what I need is I already have users who are created in the cloud only, which we call it as a cloud users, and I do have users who got synchronized from on-premises AD from my core Active Directory environment, and there are a couple of users who are invited, like they are called as a B2B users, B2C users. Okay, and for these type of users, how I am going to provide access to the cloud environment. Okay, what are the different options we have? So that is what we are going to focus more on it today. Okay, as I said, Azure AD takes care of authentication authorization. It's a core component for any Microsoft cloud-based applications. Okay, so these users are created in the Azure AD. Either they're synchronized or invited, or just this just got created here. Okay, so they are responsible. I mean, not every user, and a couple of users are responsible to manage the Azure environment, which is like Azure subscriptions. Okay, so let's say I have a Azure subscription which I purchased, an Azure environment. So there can be multiple subscriptions as well. So let us say this is like subscription production, let's say apps. Okay, apps production one. This is the subscription one, and I might have another subscription too. Okay, let's say there's a subscription one. Yeah, this is the subscription one, and I have the subscription two as well. Production subscription too. Maybe we can have another subscription. Let's say this is the dev subscription for applications. Okay, dev 01. We can also have another subscription. Let's say dev 02. So in an enterprise, there can be more than one subscription, and they all can be tagged to one Azure AD tenant. Okay, they all can be part of one Azure AD tenant. So once we have subscription, and the hierarchy is a little bit different here. You will have the resource groups. There can be multiple resource groups here. Let's say have a production app one, or let's say let me put it in different way here. Um, let's say this is going to be my RG hyphen, then the application one, then customer one, C1 customer, and this is 01, right? This for one customer. We have another customer 02, and we have another customer 03 example, right? So this is how it's going to be. And so this can be part of one subscription itself, and the similar environment can be for another subscription too. So let's say this is like another one. This can be another kind of a model. Let's say you had a subscription one, and the subscription is already filled with all the resources, the quota and everything is filled, so you cannot get a couple of benefits from the production subscription one. That's why you introduce the new subscription. So this is going to be, let's say, another application, and this is customer number 99, and 01 is the uh, code of this resource group for this customer. And you might have the another customer. Let's say maybe we can say 10101, like this. You can have more than one subscriptions and more than one resource groups. Okay, now here each resource group will have the resources. You can have a virtual machine, you can multiple virtual machines, multiple storage accounts, networks, and many other resources you might have within each resource group. This is how, general hierarchy, general setup that looks like. Okay, the naming standards and everything, will be coming in upcoming videos. What should be the naming standard we have to follow, and why do we have multiple subscriptions? Why do we have multiple resource groups? So those kind of best practices, we'll be talking about it. But here our goal is to ensure that we have a large environment with the multiple subscriptions, multiple resource groups, multiple resources, and how you're going to manage the access for multiple users in the cloud environment, right? For the subscription, that's a goal what we have. So don't consider why we have this naming standards. We have a separate video that's coming up, so that will talk about these best practice in detail. Okay, so now what we have is we have Azure AD and the subscriptions and resource groups and resources. So before that, we do have something called management groups. Okay, so we can say this is going to be one management group. I would say management group. Let's say this is prod MG. Okay, production management group, and these two comes under, I would say, let's say this is comes under development management group. Let's say this is dev MG. Okay, development management group. So likewise, you are going to group the subscriptions. Okay, now we have subscriptions and we have multiple resource groups. With each resource group contains multiple resources. These resources belongs to one customer, or one application, or one environment. That's why we are keeping into one resource group. Likewise, these are like multiple subscription, and they are all belongs to production environment, which means I'm going to deploy all production resources in this subscription. So that's why I'm going to create a production management group. I will let you know why I have come up with this approach, because the management group, I mean, this will help you in applying policies and applying permissions, for the different users or different scenarios. So that's the reason we, come add these management groups and add your subscriptions to these management groups. Okay. Now let's say for the production, I'm hiring a few people. Let's say just giving a names like let's say Rob, John, and let's say Rajesh, and let's say Sharath. Okay, these are the people I'm going to hire, and they are going to help me in the Azure environment. Okay, so the Rob is going to be a cloud architect. Okay, and John is going to be a consultant, and Rajesh also is going to be a senior consultant. They both are like having a L3 roles. Okay, they are going to be in L3 roles, and Sharath is going to be on a L2 role. Okay, likewise, these are the different roles we have, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create these user accounts in the on-prem AD. It's just assuming that they are on-prem, or let's say they are in the cloud. So they are basically on the Azure AD. Now, so since Rob is a cloud architect, so I'm going to give him access to all management groups because he's supposed to, mm, you know, help with the entire cloud setup in case if there is a new requirement, a new subscription onboarding is required, new customer onboarding is required. He's the one who is going to take a decision. So I'm going to add him to all the management groups, even in case in future if I create another subscription or another kind of category of subscriptions, then I'm going to add them into everything. So that's why I'm going to add Rob to every management group. When I add, so his role is going to synchronize, I don't know, inherit to the all the subscriptions in this management groups and its resource groups and its resources as well. So if I just add him to management group, so the permissions are inherited to the subscriptions and its resource groups and its resources. Okay, and if I want to look at John and Rajesh, so let's say John is allocated for a set of customers or maybe a set of environment. It's only for the production. Okay, he takes care of entire production. So what I can do is I can just add John to production subscription here, so that we can manage the entire production environment. And if I add Rajesh to dev, because if he's gonna help us with the dev test labs and any POs, he's going to set up the environment for us. So I'm going to add Rajesh to this. And Sharath is going to be an L2 engineer, and depends on the situation, depends on the requirement. He might be part of a production one or production two. Sometimes he might be granted access to dev subscription as well. Okay, so his access will vary, right? His access might keep on changing, depends on the projects that he's going to support, right? So, and there can be other L1 users, okay, which they need to have access to specific resource groups or a specific subscriptions alone. So we will, based on the requirement, we are going to provision access to them. Okay, so that's the reason we have management groups. It will simplify our efforts to manage these identity and access management. I can just put them in a one management group level, they get access to everything. Maybe I can add them into subscription level, they get access to everything, right? It's all depends. But there are like people whom like they need access to a specific set of resources and resource groups. There we don't add access in a management group or subscription level. And it's again a business requirement. I know different use cases, depends on the situations. We can add them in a management group level itself with the limited permissions. Okay, so now so far we discussed about the hierarchy. Azure AD, that's where the users are provisioned, that's where the users are sourced from. Then they can be granted access in a management group level or subscriptions, resource groups, or resources. This is a hierarchy what we have. We just discussed about it. Now, what permissions we have? We have been talking, okay, he's a architect, he takes care, I mean, the Rob is architect, he takes care of everything. And John is a senior consultant, he takes care of production. Rajesh takes care of POC environment. Sharath takes care of all L2 activities, depends on the projects, right? What permissions we have to provide them to fulfill this? So obviously, um, Rob is a cloud architect. Maybe he might be granted access to the entire environment. So he might be a owner of the subscriptions. Okay, so if he is purchasing the subscription, then by default he'll become an account admin as well. Okay, so now let's talk about these permissions. We have the built-in permissions on Azure. Um, so we define those permissions as a owner, contributor, and reader. Okay, so there are other services, other permissions. I see Microsoft defining them as a built-in permissions, but I just want to call them as a service-specific permissions or service-specific roles. Okay, let's talk about these built-in roles. Then we go for the service-specific roles. So when I say built-in roles, I mean the owner itself. It says he can do. He's owning this entire products, right? This entire services. So wherever any user got as a owner, he can do any operations, he can perform any operations on that scope. Let's say I am giving Sharath as a owner for this resource group, right? So Sharath can delete any resource that is in this resource group. He can create any resource within this resource group. So he has full permissions to all the resources and resource types in this resource group. Okay, that's a owner permission. Even if I add him to a subscription, the permissions or as a owner is inherited to the resource groups and its resources. Now, if I talk about contributor, it's almost as owner, but you cannot add anybody as a owner if you're a contributor. But you get all the privileges to perform the operations, like you can delete, you can create a resource in the subscription or in the resource group or as to a specific resource. It's all again where you are adding the user as a contributor, right? You add the user as a contributor in a subscription level, or you add the user and a contributor as a resource group level, right? Maybe in the management group level. So it's all depends. He can perform all read-write operations on the scope where he has been given access to. Okay, if the scope is resource group, he can perform all the actions on this resource group and its resources. Okay, and the other one is the reader. The reader will give you read access to the environment. So you specifically don't need to I mean, you cannot perform any operations. You can just see what are the resources and what is the current status. Let's say the VM, what is the status of the VM? Is it in running status? Is it in a power off status or stop geolocated status? You can see the status of the resources, but you cannot perform any operations with these. Okay, now this is called built-in roles. Now going back to our requirement, we have L3 engineers and L2 engineers and L1 engineers. Okay, so let us take an example. I'm hiring a person who is an expert on Windows. Okay, the user should have the Windows admin skill set, and he might be managing the VMware environment or Hyper-V environment in the on-premises. He have some idea about virtual machines, CPU, RAM, disk, network components, kind of stuff, right? So I'm hiring this person, he is going to help me to manage my virtual machines in the Azure environment, which means I want this user to manage only the virtual machines. I don't want this user to manage the, networking resources like, virtual WANs, virtual networks, or let's say, I don't want him to manage the backup resources, DR resources, or load balancers or anything. He's responsible for managing the virtual machines, where he's going to help us with the VM restarts, disk additions, VM resize, performance issues, all those kind of operations is going to perform, right? So if I take this built-in rules, which of these rule is going to help me to fulfill this business requirement? I would say none of them, because yes, definitely with the owner or a contributor, the user can do anything on the VM, like resize, restart, disk addition, disk removals. He can perform it, but he can also do same operations on the network, storage, or backups, any other resources, because he's the owner or contributor. He get access to all the resources not specific to the VM, right? That's when Microsoft introduced service specific roles. If it is a virtual machine, you have a virtual machine contributor. Example here, right? It's a virtual machine contributor. So virtual machine contributor role has a set of defined actions where what actions user can perform, and those actions are related to the virtual machine only. So you are confidently can grant VM contributor access to any user on a management group level or subscription level or resource group level or to a specific VM. Okay, because whichever the scope you're giving, right, the user can only perform the VM operations. He cannot perform any other operations. Okay, with the VM contributor, right, you can perform, only VM related operations. Likewise, you have backup operator, you can perform operations related to the recovery service vault, configuring backup, triggering manual backup kind of operations you can perform with the backup operator. But is this going to help us, right? Let's say I'm hiring a Windows engineer who has experience on VMware and Hyper-V virtual machine management, right? So within this, I want a L1 engineer and L2 engineer or LT engineer. So L1 engineer, what he's going to do is just going to restart the virtual machine. It's kind of a monitoring team, right? He's going to be part of a monitoring team. If somebody, or a help desk team, I would say, if any user or application engineer, complaining that the application is very slow, and user is saying that they're not able to RDP or SSH, the only option to fix the critical problem is to restart the server. I want this L1 engineer to restart the virtual machine. So what is the role I can use it? Should I use owner, contributor, reader, or VM contributor, or any other role, right? So these roles, because if I use anyone, if I say VM contributor, user definitely can restart the VM, but he can also delete the VM. He can also modify other properties, but I don't want to give that access to my L1 engineer who is a college research, completed, graduated engineer. We just trained him, and we don't want to give full access to the user. So then Microsoft given another option to you to customize these roles. We call it as a custom RBAC. So what does this custom RBAC do? You can customize the actions further. Microsoft has started with the owner contributor, then they customized and called as a service specific roles. And then again, you can further drill down and customize the actions based on your need. I'm going to create a role with the restart operation. I will assign this role to an engineer where he can just perform the restart when there is a critical incident occurred, right? This is the another role which you can, another type of roles what you have at Microsoft. One is built-in role, service-specific role, and custom role-based access control or custom RBAC. So with these roles, your business can run smoothly with respect to the permissions. It's very important that we work very hard on these permissions. Most of the organizations want to do their work completed with the least privileges. It's because there is a valid reason. If you give high privileges to a user, if it is being misused, it's going to impact the business. Maybe for the user, it's just a restart of the server, but a restart of the server caused a, application downtime. And application downtime might cause many user experience, or maybe it might impact in the business revenue, many things. Maybe it's an hour, 30 minutes downtime, but it is going to impact credibility of our organization as well. It's very important to work hard on this RBAC, and we have to have a stringent policies in terms of defining these roles and who can get access, what is the process. Let's say you are working as a Azure administrator, and you got a request to add provide access as a contributor, right? Contributor, and you are the engineer who is in the shift. What you need to do, and maybe the request is coming from a senior resource in your organization. They're asking, hey, please provide me contributor access, because they have to deliver some project work or something, and this will help them to complete that work or deliverables very quickly, right? And they're asking to give access to the production subscription. So then what you need to do is you need to question them or try to gather the information. I would say, I'll put this in this way, right? Gather the information, what resource they need access. They simply say subscription access. Okay. So why they need access? What is the reason for it? Maybe they will say that, we are in the process of implementing this project. We are in the process of completing this project. I need to deploy so and so resources, and I don't want to depend on the operations team. I want to complete this task as soon as possible. It's impacting the business and revenue, a lot of things. So then you need to ask, what resources you need to deploy, right? Is there any resource group you need to have access? Maybe because, within the subscription, there can be other production instances, other customers information, other customers resource groups and resources. If that user is responsible for a specific customer, let's say C101 is the resource group created for that customer, and within this resource group, the user has to deploy resources, manage resources. Then if it says that, he only managed this resource group, then it's not necessary to provide access in a subscription level. Then if we say what resources, then if we specify this is the resource group where, he need access, then you can ask him, like, how long he need access. Is it temporary or long term? Okay. When you say, let's say 3 months or 4 months, that's fine. You can give access, but do we need approvals? What does your process says? Do you need to get approval from your manager or, their managers? Kind of, things you have to validate. Okay. So once you get approvals, don't give access in a subscription level. Go ahead and give access in a resource group level. Ask the user to manage it, validate it. In case if the user need to create a new resource group and start deploying it, you can always ask the user to place a request to create a new resource group and let operation team help in creating resource group. Later, you provide access to the resource group for that user. Okay, so that's how we have to manage the identity and access management IAM part. There's like couple of few examples I'm giving. There can be different use cases, and process can be very strict. We have to follow the process at any cost. We cannot deviate it. Okay, so now let's do one thing. Since we talked about the different components such as management groups, subscriptions, resource groups, and resources, and we talked about the hierarchy, how the permissions are inherited. Now we also discussed about different roles and permissions and how they're different from each other, why Microsoft given us the option to do this. Now let's try to provide access to the users who are in Azure AD. If not, we will create a user accounts in the cloud. Then we'll try to provide access in a subscription management group level. We'll provide access in a subscription level and resource group level and resource level. I will also show you how to create a custom RBAC, and we'll also do the testing on the custom RBAC. Okay. I am on Azure portal now. So this is my Azure Active Directory. It has Azure AD Premium version P2 version. And what we are going to do is let's create the couple of users and couple of groups, and we'll provide access based on the groups. So let me share the details. Let us create this users and groups. Okay, so we are going to create one group which says cloud administrator groups. We'll have a contributor role given to this group, and this is a built-in role which is a contributor, and these two users will be created and they will be added to this group. Okay, and same thing here, we'll create another group VM operation operator with the L3, and the role which we are going to give is a VM contributor, which is a service specific role. And we will create another one, which is a VM operator L2. We will add only few operations on the virtual machine, which is going to be the custom role. And we'll create these two users and add them to this group. There will be one more group which we are going to create, which is VM operator L1. So we will add this VM restart role, which is a custom role again. We'll be creating these two custom roles and these users and groups in now. So in case in future, if any new user joined and who is going to support any one of these roles, they once their account is created, they just need to be part of these groups. So we are nowhere going to give direct access to any user. So we are going to give access to Azure subscriptions based on the groups. So let's get started with the creation of these users. The first user, what we are going to create is Rajesh. Yes. Let me create a user account, Rajesh. Yes. And display name is Rajesh. Yes. Let me copy the password. And this is surname. Okay, and I'm going to provide the first name, and the job title is, let's say, he's he's part of a contributor role. So let's say senior consultant, company is VBH IT Solutions, and department is cloud services. Employee ID is like 1 4 some random numbers I'm taking. Employment type is let's say full-time, and let's say hiring date, we'll take any other date. This location could be India, and we can also add manager and other properties. Usage location is India. Assignment, if I go, there are assignments. You can add the user to the group which we mentioned. We have not created the group. We will first create the users, then we'll create the groups. I'm not adding any role as well. It's just a normal user on Azure Active Directory. Okay, user one is created, which is Rajesh. Yes. And the other user I'm going to create is Vishwa K. Vishwa K. And I'm going to create a normal user, the default properties. And another user who's going to be VM operator L3, VM L3. He's going to be a contributor, uh, VM contributor. So the username is Ganesh. In this example, I'm just taking a Ganesh as a username. Okay, let me just copy the username and the password. Okay, and I'm going to create a normal user account, no other permissions given to this user, and creating another user who's Edward. Okay, and again on with the default permissions. And there will be one more, a couple of users who is a Mark Yes, who is going to be a VM, who is going to be the L2 engineer. Mark Yes. Create user account. All right, the users are created. Let me create a group first. So the first group I'm going to create is a cloud group, cloud administrator group, which is a security group. There's another group type, which is Microsoft 365 base group, where you will get the email ID. So this can be used as a distribution group list. But right now in our scenario, we are going to use security group. So it's going to be cloud admins. And it's important to add Azure AD roles can be assigned to this group. Again, it's again a business requirement, but you know example, I'm going to say yes because I can add this entire group. The specific Azure AD roles could be like a global administrator or user administrator, so that I don't need to add these roles manually to each and every user. If I add to this group, so the roles can be inherited to the all the members in the group. So that's what I'm going to do. And if I want to add the members, search for the members as per the our discussion. So the cloud admin should be Rajesh S and Vishwa K. Let me look for those users details here. Rajesh S and Vishwa K. Okay, both are been selected to add to this group. All right, so cloud admin group is created. Now I'm going to create another one, VM operator L3. That's a new group. So again, it's going to be a security group. And in this group, again, I'm going to add Azure AD roles can be assigned to this. And members are going to be Ganesh and Edward. And another user is Edward. Okay, these two users are added. And there will be one more group, VM operator L2. And I'm going to add members here as well. So as per our example, so Mark S and Paul should be added to this group. Okay, they both are added. Even after the group is created, you can add these members. That's totally fine. I'm going to create another group, which is the VM operator L1. So here I'm going to add a user Sanjay. Sanjay is going to be the L1 engineer in this example. And create this group. So now all these groups are created and the users are created. Now let's go and give the permissions in Azure subscription level. And if you notice, these users and these groups are just having the user permission or a normal role on Azure AD. They are not even administrator on the Azure AD. So we just created their user accounts in Azure AD. Now we are going to give them access to the Azure subscription. How we give Azure permissions is we don't want to give permissions on the subscription level or resource group level. We will try to provide access in a management group level. Let me search for the management groups. I have two management groups. One is the MG Modern Apps, MG Production. So MG Modern Apps have 3 subscriptions and MG Production have 1 subscription. I'm going to give access to this Modern App subscriptions because they are like development or testing subscriptions. So instead of give them an access in a subscription level, I'm going to give access in a management group level. To provide that, I come to management group, click on access control, click on add role assignment. For the administrators, cloud admin groups, I'm going to give as a contributor. So let me look for cloud admins. Okay, the users who are part of this group will have the contributor role. And there is one more group where I'm going to provide them as VM contributor, virtual machine contributor. This is the role. and the group will be VM operator L3. So there are three groups for VM operator. I'm going to select L3. All right, so if I go back to this, we have provide access to this cloud admins and VM operator L3. And for these two, if I need to give access for these roles are not exist. VM contributor role and contributor role already exist in Azure subscription by default, but this customized roles are not exist. So let us create two custom roles. One we can use it for the VM operator L2 group and other one for L1 group. So to create a custom role, what we can do is click on add a custom role. And here you will have an option like start from the scratch or start from the JSON or clone existing role. I can just start from the scratch and provide a name of the role. Let's say this is going to be VM operator L2. Okay, that's what I'm going to give. And this is where you're going to add the permissions. And in the permissions, let us look for the compute. We are focusing on virtual machine now. So I'm looking for the Microsoft.compute option here. Here you will be able to see Microsoft.compute. You can see here. And whatever the services comes under compute, you will be able to see here. We are focusing on virtual machine. So let's drag down here and look for the virtual machine operations. So you can see Microsoft.compute slash virtual machine here. You can see various operations the users can perform. So this is going to be L2. So I'm just choosing the, for example, I'm choosing the redeploy, reapply, power off, start virtual machine. I am not giving the delete virtual machine option, restart, deallocate, capture, run command from the virtual machine blade. So these are the actions the users can perform if this role is assigned to any user or a group. Okay, and next going here, this JSON template. These are the action that we are adding to this role. And there's one more action we have to adding to this, which is the Microsoft.compute slash read. So with this, what happens is you will be able to see the virtual machines in the subscription or all compute resources. Then you will be able to provide access. Otherwise, you need to provide read access to the user at a subscription level or a resource group level. Then only you'll be able to perform these operations. So it's always important to add this role. Otherwise, the custom role assigned user cannot see any resource. I'm going to save this and create this role. Likewise, I'm going to create another role, which is again a custom role. This is going to be VM operator L1 role. Okay, and go ahead and add permissions here, and again look for compute, and here look for the virtual machines. So under the virtual machine, what I'm looking is I'm looking only for the restart operation, restart the virtual machines, and add this role. And again in the JSON template, so let's try to add the Microsoft.compute read action. Okay, let's put comma here and save this, create this role. All right, so these two roles are created. Now we have to add these roles to this group so that the users will get access to them. So let me go ahead and add a role assignment and search for the roles, not this one, VM operator. You see L2, L1 both are there. I'm going to choose L2 role. If you want to look at the permissions, again, click on view. It will tell you what actions the users can perform if you assign this role. So now I'm going to assign this VM operator L2 role to the group called L2. Okay, VM operator L2. Okay, and another role assignment for the L1. So VM operator L1 is for the L1 team, L1 group, right? So added this one too. Now these users, Sanjay should have the VM restart operation. Mark and Paul should have the no restart, stop, start, and reapply, reapply, and couple of more actions. Ganesh and Edward should have the more privileges, like with respect to VM. Rajesh and Vishwa should have the contributor role. Okay, let us review the permissions now. I'll go to the role assignment, do a refresh here. You can see the contributor is added to the cloud admin group. If I go to this group and check the members, you will see those two users, um, Rajesh and Vishwa. And if I go back to this VM operator L2, so operator group is given access. This is a group, and L1 is again L1 group. So we have given access based on the group. Now let us validate by logging into Azure portal with these users. Okay, so first of all, I think I should just join with the Rajesh. We'll check the cloud admin permissions. Let me log in with the Rajesh credentials. I think this is asking for the multi-factor authentication. For the first time, I should be able to skip this. I'm going to skip this for now. And I'm able to log in with the Rajesh credentials, and let me check the subscriptions. Rajesh have 3 subscriptions, and if I go to management group, Rajesh should be able to see 1 management group because he has been granted to 1 management group only. And if I go to any one of the subscriptions and check my access, my permissions, and you'll be able to see you have been added to this group, and as part of that group you got a contributor role. Okay, that's a role or permission that user have it. Okay, then even if I want to delete any resource or create anything, I should be able to perform all the operations. Let's say I want to start this machine, I can start it, so it's not giving any error. Otherwise it could have given an error. Okay, so that's about the cloud admin permission. So the user can do anything because the user have contributor. Now let's log in with the VM operator L3 group. So Ganesh has virtual machine contributor role. Let's log in with Ganesh permissions and credentials and see what role he has it. So to log in, let me gather his credentials. I'm going to close this. Again, for this user, I'm going to skip it. Skip the multi-factor authentication registration. All right, I'm into the Azure portal with Ganesh credentials now, and Ganesh can see all the subscriptions. Even if I go to any one of the subscription and check my permissions, this how you validate your permissions and subscription. So you are a member of the group and got virtual machine contributor role. Okay, so which means this user can perform any operation on the virtual machines. So we started this VM with the Rajesh credentials. I'm going to stop this machine just to see whether it works or not. It's working well, and let me see if there are any other resources. So there are all compute resources I can see here. Um, non-compute resources, I don't see anything. Yeah, so if you look at this IP address is not a compute resource. Ganesh has VM contributor, which means that he should be able to perform only operation with respect to the VM. I tried deleting the network component, so that is actually getting failed. It's clearly saying that the user do not have the permissions. Okay, so that's the beauty of the virtual machine contributor. Though you have permissions given in a management group level, your permissions are inherited to the subscriptions, resource groups, and resources. End of the day, you will only manage the virtual machines, not any other resources. Okay. Now let's, since we have tested this one too and it is successful, let's go ahead and test the VM operator L2 role, which has only few actions that can be performed. So I'll log in with Mark credentials and we'll see how it works. All right, so we are into Azure portal with the Mark's credentials, and let us look at the subscriptions access. I'm able to see 3 subscriptions, and let me go ahead and check the permissions. My permissions. It says you have the following access, but it's not giving any information. Let me go to over act. I think it's better to go with the IAM and check the role assignments. You're not able to retrieve anything. But let me just check, whether I will be able to look at any virtual machines. Yes, I'm able to see the virtual machines. And this VM was stopped by Ganesh as part of the previous exercise. Now let me see whether I'll be able to perform operations like delete. Let me see if I can delete this machine. It says that you cannot delete the machine because you don't have the permissions. Let me see if I can start the machine. Looks like start operation is working, but delete operation is not working. The reason because the custom role which we have associated to this role uh, that doesn't have the delete permission added. So that is the reason you are able to see the delete operations failing and start operations working. Okay, so that's about the second role that we were third role that we are mentioning, custom role. VM operations with a few specific roles, not all the roles. Right now, if I want to go for another user where you just need to perform only the restart operation when there is a critical performance issues are occurring. So we will see how this user role works. So I will log in with the Sanjay role, Sanjay credentials, and we'll do the testing as well. All right, let me log in. All right, I'm into Azure portal with Sanjay credentials, and let me look at the subscriptions. I'm able to see all the subscriptions. Let me directly go to virtual machines. There are virtual machines I can see here, and this virtual machine was started by I think Mark in the previous exercise. And let me see if I can stop this machine with this account. It's not allowing because the custom role which we have given for this group is just to restart. Only the restart action can be performed. None of the any other actions can be performed by Sanjay account. because it's only restart action we have given. Let me see if the restart works or not. So let me click on restart. So restart is working fine, which means all our custom roles are working fine. The entire exercise is working fine. So we didn't see any issues. So this is how we add or provide the permissions in the Azure subscription. So this is how we provide access to access to subscriptions and its resources in a management group level or resource groups. Basically, we never, it's not a best practice to provide access based on the direct user. It's always better to create a group and add users to the group and provide permissions to the group, and always try to use the custom role as much as possible, because try to do the all the operations with the least privileges. That will help in securing the environment. So that's what we do in most of the organizations. All right, I think by this time you got a good idea about Azure role-based access control, Azure subscription permissions, and Azure Active Directory permissions. What are the different types of users we have and how we manage them. All right, so in the next session, I'm going to demonstrate more about you know the topics on Azure AD, like interview aspect. What is an Azure AD and how do you demonstrate? How do you explain to somebody else, right? When somebody asks you what is Azure AD, what operations you perform on Azure AD, right? So those kind of things that we are going to discuss in the next topic. So until then, please do watch these videos and do the labs. In case if you face any issue, please do comment or reach out to me. I'm happy to support you to learn. As long as you're learning, I'm ready to support you. Please do reach out to me. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time. Bye for now.